morning. A renewed hope for this world. Be it real or metaphor, whatever is in your backpack or your briefcase or your purse that you've brought into this sanctuary that is weighing you down, leave it behind. Whatever you are carrying that is keeping you distracted or caught up in shame or guilt or hopelessness, leave it behind. If you need it, it will be there when we're done. But for this hour, just let it go. Come into this place with open hearts. Come into this place with a soul that has remembered how to be tender again. Come into this place with a renewed hope for this world. Come into this place ready to build a world we've always been worthy of and have always dreamed of. I now invite Ella to light the chalice.
All Animal Chalice by Mark Causey. We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that we are all on this planet. The furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us featherless bipeds. We are made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering, and the same aspirations of happiness, love, and flourishing. Being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as best we may. We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced. We are intrinsically intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent, and it is good. Blessed be. Please rise in body or in spirit to join in singing hymn 298 in the gray hymnal, Wake Now My Senses.
The threat of global warming and climate change. The 2006 Statement of Conscience of the Unitarian Universalists. This was July 1st, 2006. Earth is our home. We are part of this world, and its destiny is our own. Life on this planet will be gravely affected unless we embrace new practices, ethics, and values to guide our lives on a warming planet. As Unitarian Universalists, how can our faith inform our actions to remedy and mitigate global warming and climate change? We declare by the statement of conscience that we will not acquiesce to the ongoing degradation and destruction of life that human actions are leaving to our children and grandchildren. We, as Unitarian Universalists, are called to join with others to halt practices that fuel global warming and climate change, to instigate sustainable alternatives, and to mitigate the impending effects of global warming and climate change with just and ethical responses. As a people of faith, we commit to a renewed reverence for life and respect for the interdependent web of all existence.
We are now at that time in the service where we can share what is both uplifting and weighing on our hearts. You are invited to come forward, say your name, and share a significant personal joy, sorrow, or concern, and then light a candle. If you have mobility challenges, please raise your hand and we'll be able to come to you. And a gentle reminder that we are live streaming this service and a recording will be accessible to you online for those with internet access once it's complete. Please come forward.
Hello, I'm Jack McCreeless. This is my wife, Janet Nelson. And our daughter, Elizabeth, turned 33 yesterday. She grew up in this congregation and then went to Chicago for school at the University of Chicago, and she's still there. She really likes it. And this is the point. She's now the director of religious education of the First UU Church of Chicago, a large Gothic structure right on the U Chicago campus. Unfortunately, their congregation is about the size of ours, I think. But she's working hard to develop a youth group like she grew up with, and it is a source of joy every day.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Mullane, and my daughter Kim Mullane is engaged to be married to her girlfriend Andy Moffett. The wedding will take place this summer and the reception next summer. And Kim was a good friend of Elizabeth McCreeless.
Well, I will talk about my daughter as well, since she was friends of both the others. Carol Fraser will be 33 on Thursday. And as it is fitting today, I'd like to share with you that she is working as a sustainability consultant, and she's trying to save the world and prevent climate change from doing us in. So this is for Carol.
This is the year of the three's birthday, so today I turned 83. Of course, it's not all sweetness and light. And well, we are having cake this afternoon. My daughter's coming over to help us fix the toilets and bring us cake.
Another member of the Proud Parents Brigade. This is a joy as much as pride, a joy at the safe return of my son and his wife and his two of his sons, one in a wheelchair, from an extended trip in Italy, Gaeta, Italy, where the Coccaludos come from, and Italy and Rome. And they did it with Leland in his wheelchair, and I'm so proud of them, and so glad they're back.
Well, I have to join the crowd. My daughter, Jennifer, who is not here today, retired yesterday after 26 years as a catalog librarian at MIT. So you can congratulate her on that next week when she hopefully will be here.
I am Kim Foley, and I'm speaking as a proud grandparent. My 14-year-old grandson is a trans masculine male, and he just had his birth certificate and has formally, legally changed to his new name, and it's just another step on his journey of transition.
I'm Sarah Milt, and I have two things to share. I'll do the sad part. Many of you know my dad passed away on June 11th, so we're still mourning his loss, but know that he's in a better place right now. He was pretty old, almost 89. And his service will be in September, on September 9th at Trinity Episcopal Church in Concord, where I grew up. And my daughter with me. That's a real joy to have her home. She goes away for 2 weeks with her girlfriend tomorrow, but she'll be back for the rest of the summer, so you'll see her if you come to church, because I'll drag her to choir.
Gordy McIntosh. I just want to say that we have a lot of wonderful ministries in this church, not the least of which is WCG, of course. But today I'd like to light a candle of joy for the work of the Green Sanctuary Committee and their service here today. Thank you very much.
I now light one final candle for the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken. After we light the candle, we will have a time of shared silence, after which we will sing hymn number 86 in the gray hymnal, Blessed Spirit of My Life.
Greta Tintin Eleanor Ernman Thunberg, born in January 2003, is a Swedish environmental activist who is known for challenging world leaders to take immediate action to limit climate change by reducing emissions of greenhouse gases. On September 21st, 2019, at the UN Climate Action Summit, Greta Thunberg spoke before leaders, lawmakers, and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Greta lambasted them. "You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You are failing us. But the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say, we will never forgive you."
The anthem this morning is a song I wrote for a service we did about 6 years ago, an Earth Day service with a jazz ensemble. It's called Our World.
This is a world of miracle. I have some good news and bad news. Reverend Heather gave each of us leading a summer service some guidance. This included the document titled The Shared Pulpit, a sermon seminar for lay people. Its subtitle is Tips for Giving a Truly Terrible Sermon, or 50 Ways to Lose Your Listeners. Some of you will remember its co-author, Reverend Jane Zebka. Jane displayed her wisdom and wit here as our much-loved associate minister for 5 years in the 1980s. So the good news is I've been exposed to the thoughts of an expert on sermons who I know and respect. The bad news is I know of at least one of the 50 tips on ways to lose an audience I am following. For I am doing number 33. Talk about your favorite topic regularly. Yes, my topic today is, as it has been here before, environmental responsibility. The UUA's 2006 statement on the threat of global warming that Sheila read in the opening words resonated here in our society. And we had already taken steps to, as our first hymn put it, work for a planet transformed by our care. We had a new mission statement prioritizing environmental responsibility. It is printed in every order of service and reads in part, the Winchester Unitarian Society is a welcoming, caring community devoted to spiritual growth, social transformation, and environmental responsibility. Of these three interrelated goals, environmental responsibility is the most measurable. Thus, the Society commissioned a 2005 environmental assessment by Mass Interfaith Power and Light. The assessment gave the Building and Grounds Committee, hereafter called B&G, a quantified status report and a plan for reducing our environmental impact, especially from church building energy use. Despite big church maintenance challenges and many other big projects inside and outside, B&G followed up with installation of a 72 solar panel array on the RE wing, LED lighting throughout, many storm windows, upgrade of our heating system, including switch from oil to gas, management of our space heaters and ice dam melting cables, and reduction of air leaks around outside doors. These efforts were paid for from normal church budgets, Mass Save incentive programs, and for the solar array via a power purchase agreement. All substantially reduced operating expenses by reducing energy use and/or lowering fuel costs. Interestingly, these important energy savings were barely noticeable even to congregants, let alone to a passerby. But B&G was also implementing highly visible projects, mostly paid for by donations, like the redo of Mickelson, the creation of the accessible bathroom off Sims, the meditation garden, bicycle rack, and a beautiful new front entryway paved with many bricks that reflect our society's values. None of these highly noticeable enhancements funded by donations were done primarily to reduce operating costs or reduce our church's environmental impact. What was the Green Sanctuary doing? Well, until a few years ago, with the exception of recycling, thanks Maggie, the Green Sanctuary focused little on the church building and mostly on influencing the environmental behavior of congregants and others. We did this because, first, as we've seen, the church was already in good hands with B&G actions. And secondly, because the total fossil fuel use by our congregant households dwarfed that consumed by the church building operation. For example, by the end of 2020, 30 society households had switched to 100% local, renewably sourced electricity. This avoided adding about 310 metric tons of further greenhouse gases, GHGs for short, sorry, I have to use this acronym, GHGs, to the Earth's atmosphere. This equals 3 times the church's total annual GHGs pollution. However, then we saw the impact on Winchester of the church's Black Lives Matter campaign, an installation of the BLM flag at our main door. This campaign seemed like a stretch that put us at odds with most in town. A few of our BLM flags were even removed by vandals. Yet over the next 2 years, our grounds became the site of the town's George Floyd Vigil and the inspiration for the town raising its own BLM flag on the town common flagpole. we saw that the declaring of our values loudly, proudly, and consistently could influence others. The idea of making the church an even more obvious champion of environmental responsibility took hold. First, we suggested the church also buy 100% green electricity whenever the solar array on our rooftop panels was less than needed. The Standing Committee agreed, even though Eversource's electricity, only 18% from renewables, was cheaper. You'll notice we have the Wind Power 100 sign on our church lawn, and now some other local churches do also. Next, we proposed a Toward Zero account, in which contributions would be restricted to use in planning and implementation of steps leading toward a zero or negative church carbon footprint. Again, the Standing Committee agreed. And we started using Standing Committee-approved front lawn banners. One displayed Rachel Carson's "In nature, nothing exists alone," a value so close to our own seventh principle. Other banners advertised our Earth Day services and our 10 hours of collaborative Zoom programming titled Climate Solutions in You. And when the Toward Zero account had built sufficiently to pay for an updated environmental stewardship assessment, the Standing Committee gave Green Sanctuary and B&G the okay to proceed. As B&G's Chuck Kewen outlined in our Earth Day service in 2022, the assessment's finding of church progress were exceptional. Our carbon emissions were down 60% from 2005. Even with our solar array system being credited only for big cost savings from cheaper electricity, not for the related GHGs reduced for the world. Instead, the credit for that goes to the solar array vendor who owns the array. Otherwise, you end up in double counting these things. Anyway, our total energy costs were at 3.6% of our budget, 1/6 of what some mass churches spend. We asked the assessment authors whether the cost of their recommended future Toward Zero projects would also be positive financially, with operating cost reductions more than paying for any investments. We asked this because we can't be sure if our natural gas price will ever include the cost of the damage its GHGs pollution inflict on the world. Their answer? We encourage doing the things that have the quickest payoff first, as you have done, and using the savings to finance the bigger, longer-term projects. However, we also encourage houses of worship to consider going green to be part of their mission. Congregations donate money to mission work and don't ever ask how quickly they will be paid back. Why is going green different when we're talking about saving the physical world for our neighbors and for future generations? Which brings us to a Green Sanctuary warrant article plan to be proposed at a special meeting of the congregation during the next church year. The warrant article: given the urgency of the climate crisis, we, the members of the Winchester Unitarian Society, commit to achieving net zero carbon emissions and total sustainability in our building and congregational activities by our annual meeting in May 2028. To see why we think passing this warrant is the right thing to do, let's look closely at the three key pledges in the warrant: net zero emissions, total sustainability, and the date, May 2028. Net zero emissions recognizes that even when we were able to light, heat, and cool only with renewable electricity, we will still have some small amount of GHGs in the services and products the church purchases. And we may also decide to keep our new gas stove. Any remaining GHGs like these would be balanced with an equivalent amount of GHG removal that we funded. For example, GHGs might be removed by our financial support to increase education of girls globally. The pledge of net zero emissions is for this church to become at least climate neutral, a core element of meeting our environmental responsibility mission goal. In the process, we could further our second mission goal, social transformation, directly and indirectly. Total sustainability, second big variable here, means eliminating our other environmental impacts that do harm, but are not directly tied to GHGs. For example, by water conservation, paper recycling, using eco-friendly cleaning products and alternatives to plastic, and avoiding use of rodent poison. These two pledges, net zero emissions and total sustainability, remind me of a teaching recounted in all four Gospels of the New Testament and known as the cleansing of the temple, from Matthew 21, verses 12 and 13. Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. It is written, he said to them, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers. It's pretty dangerous when an exhortation includes a text. It's getting close to a sermon here. And to me, this cleansing of the temple lesson is that a place of worship should be purer, meet a higher standard than the world about it. When will our temple be cleansed? The warrant says by our annual meeting in May 2028. This is 5 years from our recent annual meeting. It's a pretty specific time because it's meant to be a firm deadline, which can be reasonably achieved if a majority of us support the push. Now our society is leading most churches and temples in GHG removal behavior, except that we have not yet officially set any deadline, and some have. However, theirs tend to be 2035, 12 years from now. I think this date was picked mainly because it's far off and because governments have chosen it for some key environmental goals. Distant deadlines often cause procrastination and poor planning, whereas proximal deadlines inspire action. On May 2028 deadline, we picked this because it is far sooner than others, will be noticed and could have a huge impact as we progress, and it inspires others to make their environmental responsibility goals more immediate. Remember that every year, any institution or individual delays in reducing its carbon footprint, it adds to the climate crisis. I know some of you are thinking now of Douglas Adams' quip. I love deadlines. I love the whooshing noise they make as they go by. Okay, so why are we confident this deadline is achievable? First, the technologies to achieve the goal exist already, as do state and federal financial incentives to buy many of them. Secondly, we have B&G with a track record of implementing solar and energy conservation projects that have already moved us 60% along the path toward zero emissions. And the B&G committee is already moving out on the toward zero recommendations in the 2022 assessments. B&G already seeks a detailed plan for improving the RE wing's windows, walls, ceiling insulation, and electricity supply in preparation for that wing's electric heat pump heating and cooling, instead of from our big gas-fueled boiler. And B&G is also exploring ways of replacing the big gas boiler with heat pumps in ways that may use the existing heating infrastructure to heat the sanctuary. It may be that the sanctuary will need no visible changes to be heated and cooled via heat pumps. Thirdly, appreciating the church's constant pressure on its operating budget. Some of us in Green Sanctuary are fairly certain now that our heat pump operating costs can be kept low with renewable electricity by using A, in-ground heat pump technology rather than above ground, and B, replacing our aging and vendor-owned solar panels with new, fully church-owned, much higher capacity panels. Fortunately, each of these moves is now eligible to earn the church a 30% subsidy from the federal government and more from Mass Save. To use in-ground heat pump means drilling a borehole of sufficient depth and diameter to ensure our heat pumps would be always exchanging heat within the deep earth, which in winter is warmer than the air above it, and in summer cooler. Since ideally there will one day be a network system of boreholes and repurposed gas lines carrying hot and cold liquid to both public and private neighboring buildings, we will explore where we can best locate our borehole so it might become part of any such community network. Okay, if we already see the technology path so clearly, why might it take all of 5 years to get there? Because as in any construction project, the devil is in the details, so we need detailed plans. Such plans cost money and take time in themselves, and especially in their implementation. Raising the money for even the initial plans may take some time. Choosing a contractor to do the plan takes time. Getting the plans completed takes time. Then we'll need some time for these plans to inspire even more contributions for their implementation. Once most or all project funds are available, getting the best value contractors to implement the plan takes time, as will their implementation work, including obtaining the desired heat pump and solar panel equipment, borehole drilling, and electricity upgrades, all of which are likely to be in high demand. So while 5 years from last May is doable, it requires getting the warrant passed in the initial detailed plans early in the upcoming church year. Again, distant deadlines often cause procrastination and poor planning, whereas proximal deadlines inspire action. So why do the moral thing as soon as possible? As our centering thought today from Maya Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. We now know better. Forest fires, rising seas, intense storms, flooding, droughts, crop failures, and heat exhaustion are already killing humans and other creatures directly. And these climate-tied calamities also kill indirectly by creating tensions which feed armed conflict and by forcing human immigration that often proves fatal. Other vulnerable life forms on Earth are going extinct with implications barely understood. There are interdependencies between Earth's life forms that we can barely imagine, let alone yet document. This past week, the Earth reached the highest average global temperature since records began, and likely the highest in at least 125,000 years. And know that the adverse effects of climate change are disproportionately experienced by the poorer people in the world, even though the poor have contributed least to cause the climate crisis and have the fewest resources to cope with it. If we want to be moral leaders on climate change, we must do much better than 2035 net zero pledges. Our church is not a secular institution like many governments, most governments, all governments, which must wait for a huge public consensus to override entrenched and manipulative vested interests. We can set an example for our congregants, other institutions, and other individuals. Some will then move faster to stop adding to the Earth's GHGs. Passing the warrant to further our UU principles and our explicit mission goal of environmental responsibility is also perhaps a way to attract new members. This reflection did not dwell on the trauma associated with the climate emergency and the certainty it will get far worse before reversal. Instead, he focused on what the Green Sanctuary thinks is a constructive path forward. There is a reason MLK Jr. inspired change with "I have a dream" rather than "I have a nightmare." Green Sanctuary has promulgated Project Drawdown in 1 live and 6 Zoom meetings. About 500 folks, young and old, attended. Project Drawdown informs us that there is no silver bullet to reversing climate change, but there is silver buckshot. The buckshot is in the form of at least 80 assorted lifestyle, production, and consumption solutions that have already proven to work to cut GHGs so effectively that together, when scaled up, could get the world to net zero by 2050 and reverse global warming afterwards. And almost all of these 80 activities, for example, educating girls, family planning, reducing food waste, wind farms, cattle grazing and treed pastures, etc., more than pay for themselves and are beneficial in other ways. 18 months ago, I asked our congregants to share their environmental hopes or fears. I got pictures and thoughts from many who, though very climate crisis aware, still forwarded visions of hope. Catherine Maffei shared a picture of a Maine coast garden, which she and her husband Joe Randolph and some neighbors created by cleaning up a construction area full of debris and invasive weeds. Catherine feels the work paid off and says, "Lately it seems that there is more drive than ever to restore the health of our planet. I am hopeful that this trend will continue. As a global community, we have the tools, the ingenuity, and the economic power to do the work that we need to do." Susan McPhee's lovely Maine Coast sunrise photo included these words: "Everything I do for sustainability and energy is all about trying to protect the climate, and therefore the planet, for our children." Interestingly, both these church families and several other climate crisis-aware congregants now heat and cool their homes primarily with heat pumps powered by 100% green electricity. If they and others of us can do it now, so can this church within 5 years. Truly, as Rumi said, and we often sing, ours is not a caravan of despair. In closing, words of MLK Jr. seem relevant. The time is always right to do what is right. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action.
In the words of Kristen Collins, we give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. There are many different ways that you can donate. Those in the sanctuary may give cash, checks, or donate electronically. You can text GIVE to the number in your order of service or visit our website under the Giving page. If you are visiting for the first time, either in person or online, you are our guest. In-person attendees can find a physical visitor card in the pew racks in front of you. Please complete it and put it in the collection plate. Information about how to give online and how to complete the virtual visitor card will soon be shared with our live stream attendees through text on your screen. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received.
Those who wish to do so are invited to join in the unison affirmation. We gather not for ourselves alone, but to use our common power to build the beloved community within and beyond these walls. We create and reaffirm this covenant this day to make justice flourish, to practice compassion amidst difference, and to embody transformative love.
Shall we all rise and sing our closing hymn found in the order of service? Signifying to it now.
to soulfully survive the world's mayhem by Heather Ryan Starr. May whatever gatherings or activities we engage in this Saturday afternoon help restore us, our connections to one another, our sense of hope, beauty, and fun in this world, our deep knowing that we have to take care of ourselves and each other with love and joy if we are to soulfully survive the world's mayhem. Please read together the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. This service has ended, but our life of service continues. Please join us for coffee hour in the Sims room, which will be followed by a discussion in the parlor at around 11:30. If you're online and you'd like to join in the discussion, you can join via Zoom using the link displayed on your screen. Thank you.